Evening. So today is really the tale of three steel builds. I'm in a sandbox world at the moment, and I'm busy putting together little self-contained drone making areas for everything you need to launch lots and lots of rockets. I'll give you a very brief tour. So this makes your rocket stuff. Then move down. This makes batteries. This makes the rocket control units. This is fuel. This is green circuits. This took quite a lot of finessing to make it work so that the bots didn't basically get stuck in huge recharge swarms. Turns out really important that you have lots of chests spread out to feed this rather than having them clumped together. And the other thing that was important, I tried various options where the coils were provided by train, well, by simulated train box, and that was pretty much a disaster because of the traffic involved in moving all those coils around. So the direct insert actually works really well, but you end up with needing an extra coil maker compared to greens every now and again. The solution is to use a requester chest to top up the coils. So this is requesting coil and plate, even though it's direct inserting the coil. You need to drive a green, keep it going full speed, you need two inserters for coils. So there's one here and one here. This needs plates as an input. It's outputting coil to here and here. We're requesting iron plates in both cases and outputting here. So this is a little unit, so 1 to 1. If you remove any of these boxes, it doesn't run at full speed. You need the two exports from the coil machine and the two imports of coil to the green to keep it working. Okay, but that leaves you a fraction of a coil machine shy of having the right number. What you do is stick an extra coil machine on the end. That keeps everything going. Okay, so this I've possibly need, it's meant to be 1 in and 2 out. I've got that round the wrong way. But anyway, I've got slightly more of these end coil machines than is necessary, so everything's fine. So it took a bit of finagling to get this so that it didn't just die a drone death. Okay, so then here's a couple of rocket silos. So these launch regularly. Then we can do the sciences. So we've got gold science. This needs a stack inserter to be fed. I think it's the only one. All the others you can get away with a fast inserter or a standard inserter. But this, mainly because of the coils it's loading, if you look, it's got 350 coils buffered up here. So this just spends its whole life loading coils. These aren't exactly ratioed builds. They're whatever the ratio is, rounded up to one strip of machines between drone ports. So here we are with the purple science. I think we're lacking requests here. Let's change this to a purple science request. Set it to 4K because that's what I've set all the others to. There we are. This one's very simple. You just need slow inserters. Everything's fine. This is the military. Again, you just need slow inserters. And you'll notice I'm following a standard pattern here where one power pole drives 3 machines and its boxes. That works fine. This is high-tech. That, again, it's exactly the same pattern. So you've got power pole driving 3 machines and its boxes. This has 3 inputs. Nothing much to say here. Then your green I'm assuming that the inserters and the belts are being provided elsewhere. And red. Okay. Then I've got blue circuits, and this is slightly overkill. I think I can lose about half of a strip of these, but again, I'm rounding it up to round rows, full rows, with a view that in a real game you'd stamp down this with everything rounded up to get yourself up to 1 point something rockets a minute, and then you can stamp down whatever you have bottlenecked on as you add more rocket silos. Okay, so then here we are making our speed module 1s. This is enough speed module 1s for everywhere they're needed, so for both rocket controls and for the gold science, I think it is. And then here we are again at the low density structure. Okay, so enough of that. The next thing I started trying to make was steel. Now, if you remember, with productivity bonuses, you can drive 5 steel machines from 4 iron plates. So, one option for what you could do is set up 5 machines. Can we see here? Yeah, 5 machines. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 iron machines, driving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steel machines. And then we double that up, so we've got 10 in all. Okay, so let's watch this for a moment. And it does all work. You only need a slow inserter to get the steel out because you put a lot of iron in to get a little bit of steel. You've probably noticed some red lights flashing. And what's happening here is, it happens particularly on the end machines of the strip of 5. So this iron plate machine is feeding into this box, and the box is feeding 2 steel smelters. Except, if you do that, sometimes this steel smelter steals too many plates, leaving this one dry. Now, it only happens for a fraction of a cycle, but it is definitely happening. And if we look at the production numbers for steel, it's producing 370, give or take. Okay, so it's attractive to do this kind of all-in-one-place smelting, because you just have to provide the ore, and off it goes. And you're cutting down on drone traffic because you're not using the drones to move the plates out somewhere, then unloading, loading trains, and then moving them somewhere else, and then putting them back in. But we've got those red lights flashing. So, do the red lights translate into product? Here is the build, which is just 10 steel-making smelters. Let's fire this up. Okay, so remember, the previous build was making 370, 375-ish. Let's just put this power cable down because that's annoying me. It's not actually needed for the build. Right. So this is done in squares. So we have 2 steel smelters sharing an input and putting to a shared output. And it's this way round because you put in a lot of plates to get a few steel out. So it makes sense to put these closer. Right, so what's the productivity here? So this is we need to wait for that to come off the bottom. And I hope this is going to behave like it did before, because I've got some old numbers from a previous run. I'm aware that drone setups can be a little bit fickle, and it is actually quite a small percentage difference, so hopefully this will... Okay, here we are. Great. So that's gone up to about 385-ish. Right, and I promise you, if you run this for a long time, maybe 10 minutes, it settles out at about 385. So 385 is clearly higher than 375 or 370. So this is getting more throughput than the shared build up here. So those red lights really were things stalling, and they do not stall here. So this is fine. Simple build. You know, anybody could knock this up. And so you can imagine having a great big iron plate center, and then one of the trains comes from iron plates to your steel plates, smelter. You smelt away, everybody's happy. Okay. However, it would be kind of nice occasionally to smelt by your iron ore. So if you had a nice big, you know, sort of 500 million ore patch, something you could rely on not to run out overnight, you would want to set it up so that you smelted your steel on site. And for that, you want one of those iron steel setups. And anyway, it's less overhead if you're doing the direct insert. There's fewer drone journeys, less trains to fiddle with. Life would be simpler. So what could we do to regain this performance, but with a mixed drone setup? So this is what I came up with. So we go back to the direct insert plan. So we have an iron plate smelter being fed from a box. That's then feeding into this box, which is feeding into steel. And we set up that repeated unit 4 times. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 iron to steel smelter pairs. However, the productivity bonuses mean we're going to make some extra iron plates. So what do? We stick them into a provider chest. Now, usually the steel smelter will pull the plates out of the provider chest before anything can get hold of them. So this thing is going to tend to always be running at full speed. Then we're pulling from this chest, and it is a buffer chest. So the buffer chest is requesting a load of ore, but we're also sticking our steel into the buffer chest, which makes it available to the logistics network. And the requesters down here request from buffer chests. So this keeps our chest count nice and low. So we've got drones dropping off ore in here and picking up steel. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 repeats of that. And then we have a standalone steel machine, which is requesting from a requester chest, putting to a passive provider chest, just stands alone. Then we do another 1, 2, 3, 4 of those units, and then 1 standalone steel. Okay, so there's probably ways we could optimize this by putting the standalone steel somewhere in the middle of the row. So we've got 4, 1, 4, 1. We could probably do something like a 2, 1, 4, 1, 2, something like that, to spread them out a bit more. But that's a sort of micro optimization. So let's power this up. And once things have buffered up, which takes a moment, we are not seeing quite the same. We're still seeing a bit of red lights coming on and off. In tests, that sorts itself out after a while. I think possibly I need to increase the request size here. So it's currently set to 10. Let's set this to 20. Right. So that's 20. That's better. Okay. So what's the production on this? Let's set it to 1 minute. And you can see it's stabled out. And it is at 300 and 300 and of course it hates me. So this is now decided that it's going to be at 370 odd, which is as bad as the other mixed steel build. Last time I ran this, it decided that it was going to run at 385, which was as good as the good steel build. Sod's law, isn't it? So I think the take home here is that you can only get reliable. Yeah, see, that's peak there was the previous one. Let's see what we've got. Yeah, so I think the take home here is that the only way to reliably make steel from iron plates is to smelt them all on their own. Yeah, this is definitely not playing ball. So although it did work last time, something weird was going on with timings. It's just not reliably working now. We're not getting that final smelter fully fed all the time. It's not a problem with bots. We have nearly 100 bots spare. So this is not going to behave. Let's power this up once more just to show that it wasn't a fluke. Right, and we'll watch on the screen to make sure this really does come up higher. Okay, and the zagging you're seeing here is just that there is a long cycle time on the plates. Right, so we're going to have to wait another 30 seconds just to prove that this does get up to higher than 370. But I think there can't be much doubt about that now. So I'm going to carry on making little drone areas like this for each of the products you need in your supply chain. It's quite surprising to me how small a lot of these builds are. I'm still going to consider putting them out in their own areas, separated either by logistics or by a chest-to-chest transfer. As I say, really the idea is ultimately that I'll play a late game, mega base type stage game where everything's done with trains, there's single outposts for single items, and as we can see from the from the steel example, so that's up to 390, 385, 390. So that is clearly the superior way to do steel. So the only counter case I've found so far where you definitely want to make your product where you want to make intermediate products in the same build is this green circuit one. I cannot find a way to scalably make green circuits where the coils are brought in from outside. This is the only way I've found to make green circuits scalably. There are lots of builds which work for one row of machines, but this is the only one I have found which works for an entire block of machines. I'm just going to pull this out briefly so that you can see the unit. Yeah, here. Okay. So, and I'm going to power it up just to get rid of the annoying flash. There we are. And I'll give it a drone again just because of the annoying flash. There we are. Got rid of all these flashing lights. Okay, so this coil machine is outputting into this box, is outputting into that box, and is being fed by this requester. Okay. Then this green circuit maker is being fed from here and fed from here, both of which are which are requesting coils and requesting plates, and then it's outputting into this one. So that's our unit, and then once a row, on the end of the row, you have this here, which I think I've done wrong, but which doesn't matter in reality because things are outside of tolerance. There we are. Okay. So it should have been one requester, two out. That's how it should have been done. And then these need to be limited, otherwise it will just run away and fill them up. So that's what you stick in. So I think it might be 15 to 14, or I can't remember the exact ratio. But anyway, you can fit 15 machines between two drone ports with the drone points linking. So we've got 7 green makers because it's in doubles. So that would be 14 machines, 7 pairs of machines. So every 7 there's an extra coil maker. There's probably other ways to do this. There's probably slightly cleverer ways I could do the maths so that every now and again there's a standalone green maker, but I just haven't bothered. That's work for a time when I can add up. Alright, that's it really. So this is probably the end of my adventures with fiddling about with steel smelting, because frankly, if I couldn't make even this quite careful setup with all the extra boxes and the extra machine to suck up the extra iron plates, if I can't make this produce reliably high output, then I'm not sure it can be done. Okay, so this is decided to play silly buggers. No, it's definitely plateauing out lower than the other build. These zigs are not going all the way to the top of the chart, so I think we can declare this not practical if you want full throughput. The only way to get full throughput on steel is to have a dedicated steel smelter that eats plates. That's all, and that's probably the end of my adventures in steel smelting. So thanks very much for listening, and have fun.